A new capital for Egypt, but not for most Egyptians. Hi there, everyone. It's Jeff, and this is Plain English lesson number 437. JR is behind the controls, and he has posted the full lesson to plainenglish.com/437. Coming up today, one of the oldest countries in the world is about to get a new capital. The plans for Egypt's unnamed capital are stunning. If all goes according to plan, most government functions will move to the new city. Over 6 million residents will live there, and the city will have the tallest building in the world. But it's not all good news, especially for the vast majority of Egyptians that can't afford to live there. The expression we'll talk about today is from scratch. I can't believe we haven't done that one before. It's a great English expression to know. And JR has a song of the week too, so let's dive in. About 100 million people live in Egypt. A fifth of them in Cairo, the capital, or in the surrounding areas. It's the largest metropolitan area in Africa and the Middle East. The metro area's population has doubled since 1990, but the ancient city's infrastructure has struggled to keep up. The streets are densely packed, arteries are jammed with traffic, and the pollution is suffocating. In fact, Cairo has been called one of the most polluted cities in the world. Egypt has been investing in satellite cities around the capital to cope with the growth. About 32 kilometers to the east, 6th of October City is home to about 500,000 people. About the same number of people live in New Cairo, a new city to the west of Cairo. Now, these smaller cities include homes, factories, offices, and amenities like golf courses and hotels. But it's still not enough to contain the sprawling growth of Cairo, the center of business and government in Egypt. At the same time, Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, the country's president, is keen to make his mark on Egyptian society. The retired general led the military overthrow of the previous president amid massive protests on the streets. In 2014, he won an election with 97% of the vote. As the military's official candidate, the outcome was not in doubt. But since he took office, living standards have declined for ordinary Egyptians, and al-Sisi has increasingly ruled as an authoritarian. So, He is turning to mega projects to cement his legacy. And, he says, to boost the economy by attracting foreign investment. And the new capital is one of those projects. The new capital doesn't yet have a name. It's being called the new administrative capital, and a competition is being held to give it a name. It's situated about 45 kilometers east of Cairo, about halfway between the current capital and the port city of Suez. The new city is being planned from scratch. Its primary function is to be an efficient seat of government, hosting government ministries, a new parliament building, a presidential residence, and other government offices, all arranged around a central square. Separately, a massive complex called the Octagon will house Egypt's Ministry of Defense. The Octagon will be 10 buildings arranged around a circle. Each building will be in the shape of an octagon with 8 sides. It will be one of the largest military headquarters in the world. But the new city will not just be for government offices. 21 residential districts are planned, each with its own individual character. One is built to look like an American suburb, another like the elegant streets of Paris. The Al-Fatah Al-Alim Mosque is the largest mosque in Egypt and the second largest in the world. It has a capacity of 17,000 people. The Nativity of Christ Cathedral is the largest Christian place of worship in the entire Middle East. Both of those were inaugurated in recent years. The business district will feature the 80-story iconic tower, which is currently under construction. It will be Africa's tallest building, but not for long. That's because Egypt has plans to build the tallest building in the world, the obelisco, in the shape of an obelisk, a structure the pharaohs built thousands of years ago. According to its designs, the obelisco will be exactly 1 kilometer tall. 2 sports complexes are being built. One will feature a 90,000-seat stadium that could host World Cup soccer. The new administrative capital already hosted the World Championship of Men's Handball as a trial run for a potential Olympic bid. Several universities are planned. The German International University has already completed its branch in the new capital. A long, linear greenway, twice the size of New York's Central Park, will feature a man-made river to symbolize the Nile River. Tens of thousands of hotel rooms, a theme park, venues for arts and culture, golf courses, and more will keep people entertained. A monorail will help residents get around the city and the region. A new train line to Cairo is also planned. Buildings will have solar panels, all payments will be digital, and the infrastructure will be monitored digitally as well. Today, much of the city is built, but it's eerily quiet. Many roads and public spaces are finished, and most of the office buildings in the central business district have topped out. However, only a small fraction of government jobs have moved. President al-Sisi directed more government departments to make the transition from Cairo to the new capital, and he made that direction at the end of 2021. Egypt's cabinet held its first meeting there in early January. A small portion of homes have been sold, but most of them stand empty. Just one question. Is this even a good idea? Critics say this is political showboating by al-Sisi, designed to distract from his failures of basic governance. Others say that the money spent on the new capital should be directed toward improving the lives of ordinary Egyptians. And although the capital will have a capacity of 6 million residents, the majority of Egyptians won't be able to afford the high prices being charged. But the biggest criticism is about who stands to benefit from the massive development. By moving the capital city and the seat of power to a brand new place, the government will lure businesses and wealthy individuals to the new capital. To establish a presence there, they'll need to buy land. Who owns the land? The development corporation is 51% owned by the military. The rest is owned by the Ministry of Housing. In other words, by moving the capital, the government is pulling off a one-time extraction of wealth from anyone, domestic or foreign, who wants to be near the government. And the military will be able to use this new wealth and its massive new headquarters to further strengthen its hold on Egyptian society. A brief housekeeping item for you. I will be in Mexico City for the entire month of February. In fact, this lesson comes out on January 27th, and that is the day I'm leaving. So I'll be in Mexico City starting today through the end of February 2022. And we have so many members and listeners from Mexico. I know you don't all live in the capital, but if you do live in Mexico City, or if you will be traveling through Mexico City at any point in February, I'd love to be able to meet you and say hello. So if you're interested, visit plainenglish.com/meet, MEET, and share your details, and we'll work something out. plainenglish.com/meet, MEET. Today, we are going to talk about what it means to do something from scratch. When you do something from scratch, you start with nothing already done for you. You can say that you do something from scratch, make something from scratch, or build something from scratch. And in all those cases, nothing is already done for you. Instead, you have to use the basic tools and ingredients to do all the assembly and building yourself. So let's start with how you heard it in today's lesson. Egypt is building a new capital city from scratch. They are building it in the desert. There was no city there before. No sewers, no roads, no parks, no trees, no nothing. They started with nothing already done. They're not expanding Cairo in a new direction. They're not converting an existing city into the capital. Nope. They are starting from scratch. They started with a big piece of empty desert. London and Istanbul are both big travel hubs in Europe. If London wants to continue being a gateway to Europe, then it needs more airport capacity. The government keeps going back and forth on options, but they're considering building another runway at Heathrow Airport and expanding capacity at the region's other airports. Istanbul did it differently. Turkey built a massive new airport from scratch. It opened in 2019. What was there before? A lot of the land that is now the gleaming new airport was once government-owned forest. They truly built that airport from scratch. They didn't start with anything already built. So that's buildings or construction. Another way to use from scratch is to talk about meals. I love pasta and meatballs. It's great comfort food. But I have a confession to make, and that is this. When I prepare pasta and meatballs, I don't make it from scratch. I get the pasta pre-made, and I'm almost embarrassed to confess this, since we have so many listeners in Italy, but I usually just pour the marinara sauce out of a jar. Well, what would I have to do to make pasta and meatballs from scratch? For the pasta, I'd have to buy the flour, eggs, olive oil, and salt. Then I'd have to combine them into a dough. And finally, I'd form the pasta somehow and cook it. For the sauce, I'd need to start with the tomatoes, oil, and spices and cook it. And for the meatballs, I'd have to start with ground beef and add maybe some ricotta cheese and dried up old breadcrumbs. Making a meal from scratch is a lot of effort. A lot of you work with spreadsheets. Maybe you make financial models like I sometimes do. One great way to save time when you need to make a spreadsheet is to start with an example or a template. That way, you don't have to start from scratch. You don't have to start from nothing. But there are some tasks that you need to start from scratch, either because the old models are too messy or because you're starting something new. If you start a spreadsheet from scratch, you press Control N and you start with that cursor on A1. You write your own formulas, do your own formatting. Nothing comes from a template, not if you're building a spreadsheet or a model from scratch. So what this means is that when you do something from scratch, you start without any of the work already done. However, we have to be reasonable when we use from scratch. We can use our judgment here. For example, if I want to make meatballs from scratch, I don't have to slaughter the cow myself. I can buy ground beef, but I can't buy meatballs that have been pre-made at the grocery store. If I want to make a spreadsheet from scratch, I don't have to build a new computer with my own two hands. I can start with a blank Excel workbook, and it's still from scratch. It's time for JR's Song of the Week. It's called Meet Me at Our Spot by The Anxiety, Tyler Cole, and Willow. The lyrics describe younger people suffering from insomnia and anxiety, and the two people have a spot they can meet to comfort each other. I'm not sure if they're romantically involved or not. It's not totally clear, but that's a great song and really popular on YouTube. I think they're on tour too. So thanks, JR, for that song. And that's all for today's lesson. Remember, if you are in Mexico and you'd like to say hi while I'm in Mexico City, just go to plainenglish.com/meet, MEET, fill out the form, and I'll be in touch about a way for us to connect during the month of February 2022. We'll be back on Monday, as always, with a new lesson. See you then.